The functionality of the top-level screen in this example is split between 4 different loops, and I've called them the user interface loop, the process loop, the data acquisition loop, and the reading of serial devices. I'll open the top-level screen. The screen contains a large tab dialog structure, and I have found that users like such tab dialog structures because they make the program easy to navigate around. However, it means we essentially have several screens in one, which could increase the number of loops we might want, although in this particular case it does not, because the user interface is handled in one loop. Notice that there is a quit button under the interface loop, and its execution option is set to @end exit button. This tells Structure Builder that we want this particular button to terminate this loop. Structure Builder then makes sure that the other loops terminate at the same time. The other loops each need an action which occurs when they terminate, and this action is set to @end rather than @end exit button. For example, the terminating action for the data acquisition loop is obviously to close the acquisition down. Here you can see the 4 loops. I am now going to give 3 guidelines which are important in determining the best way to split functionality between loops. Firstly, it is best to keep the number of loops reasonably low. In this example, we could have 1 loop for each button, but that would be very strange. Secondly, each time-consuming item that could occur concurrently must be in a separate loop so that these items do not hold up each other or any other actions. By time-consuming, I mean anything that takes longer than about 100 milliseconds. Examples of such time-consuming items are subscreens, communication with devices over buses, processor-intensive calculations, or saving of large datasets. Subscreens can often be collected together into one loop because they are normally open at separate times. In this example, I cheated and made the item called change password into an action, whereas it should really be a screen. So here in our interface loop, we would have our sequences screen, our change password screen, and any other screens that we might need to add, which are called from the main screen. I find that I often have an interface loop that handles most of the user's interaction with the main screen in my programs. And thirdly, when splitting functionality between loops, it is obviously best to minimize data transfer between loops. For example, it is often easier to acquire and log data in the same loop. That concludes this video on multiple loops. Be sure to watch the other videos in this series, and I wish you every success in using Structure Builder for your LabVIEW projects.